Hello, I'm Charles Busch, and I have a friend with me here.
Hi, I'm Nora Brigid Monahan. I'm the playwright of Aunt Jack. Hi, Charles.
Hi there. Yes, I should say that I'm the playwright of The Confession of Lily Dare, and it's awfully exciting that we're both on the schedule at this wonderful theater. I
Yes,
think,
it's surreal being on here with you after all of these years that we're on here as colleagues, as co-workers
you know,
of a
I guess
sort.
perhaps we should say that, I was 11 years old when I first met you, and you were just such a wonderful mentor to me when I was growing up, and I'll always be so grateful for the
Yeah,
encouragement that you gave me, and to encourage me to be a writer performer. Thank you so much.
Charles, you read all of my lines. Those were that was my cue card.
Well,
Yes,
yes.
we've known each other for almost 20 years. When I
Yes.
was 11, and you were a little bit older than me. I think you were in your mid late 20s,
Something
and something like that. But yeah, we met all those years ago when I auditioned for reading of a play of yours,
Mhm.
and I'll never forget it. It was one of the most significant, memorable moments from my entire child acting career, not just doing the reading, but actually getting to read with you in the audition. And I still remember it so vividly, and how much I identified with you and felt like you got me. And as you remember, I was a unique kid,
Yeah.
and so it meant a lot to have someone like you see me and recognize, parts of myself that even I didn't recognize in myself yet.
Yeah, well, and it's so funny because um, it, I had such a similar experience, but on the other, the other side is that I children always got me nervous. I never liked kids even when I was a kid, and so my sort of strange fugitive, you know, weird moments with kids over the years were just always, I came off kind of like Betty Davis playing a governess, in a movie. It just was awful, but somehow I just connected with you immediately. And, part of me identified, and yet actually, when I was 11, I did not have the poise or develop skills that you had at that point. But just certainly the vulnerability and the passion, and the curiosity about adults, that is sort of
Yeah.
rare. A lot of kids, So I was just so taken with you immediately, and wanted more. I just after that reading, and I guess I sometimes get chronology mixed up. Times Square Angel came after we started hanging
Right
out, right?
after.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
then I did a rather bold move that was completely out of character for me, and was that I just was so taken with this child, and so I contacted your mother, and
Yeah.
and said that I would like to, take you to the theater if you would come into the city from Long Island, and I'd pick you up at the train and put you back on the train. And that was a real leap of faith for her to trust me. She didn't know me, and it was a certain way. I was trying to relive my childhood with my aunt who did that for me, and it was just such a really enchanting experience for both of us, I think.
Yeah. It was certainly the most formative part of my childhood for me. And you were, I mean, I guess it was a leap of faith, from my perspective. You were obviously so kind and so, like I said, understanding of me. And my parents, though incredible, wonderful, supportive people of me and of me being a child actor, weren't theater people. And so, you know, you also offered, you were the first person in my life, an adult or a kid, who I felt like I could talk to about, you know, movies and theater and things that I was really interested in. And so, you know, my mother really saw that you could offer me something that, you know, that even my parents couldn't. And so, you know, when you started taking me to the theater, it was really life-changing. I wrote, as you might remember, although this was a long time ago too, I wrote my college essay about it, about you taking me to see Sweeney Todd. So it was, and has continued to be really transformative. I really am here because of you. I started writing and got interested in being a playwright because of you. So thank you. So here we are together.
We had so many experiences too, and you know, I have, over the course of, I don't know how long, at that point I'd been working theater already 20 years probably. You know, I had met a lot of people, and it was wonderful being Auntie Mame and taking, well, for one thing, you remind me a lot of myself at that age, because you had such a sophisticated frame of reference at 11 years old, and that the favorite star was Angela Lansbury, and the fact that it wasn't just some kid who kind of knew her from Murder, She Wrote, but that it was based on Sweeney Todd and the Manchurian Candidate. And so I just thought, you know, I gotta get this kid to see Angela Lansbury and meet her. And so we went. I guess the first show we saw was in Deuce, the Terrence McNally play,
with Marion Seldes.
And she'd returned to the theater, and I'd met her briefly at a dinner party and wrote her a letter, and then, you know, there we were in her dressing room, and then later meeting Liza Minnelli in the dressing room at the Palace, and going backstage to Grey Gardens and hanging out with those ladies. And I mean, it was so much fun.
I got progressively more used to it. I don't know if you remember how starstruck I was when you took me to meet Angela Lansbury. I was just shaking.
Yeah.
And I think because you introduced me to her and she said hello, and I then just was saying, she said my name.
I know, you were like, your face turned green. I mean, you were just absolutely just, yeah. And she was so wonderful and kind. And then what I thought was lovely was, over the next 8 years or whatever it was, that each time she was in a play in New York, we would go back again and kind of continue the conversation. And I remember when you were in a debate over which college to go to, and she gave you a great sort of, suddenly turned into the character in the Manchurian Candidate, just being very direct and giving you advice, and that was thrilling.
Right. Yeah, Angela Lansbury told me where to go to college. It was really a unique upbringing that you afforded me.
Yeah, no, it really was mutual. I mean, sometimes, you know, when that kind of story is adapted, it's only from the point of view of the child and what they got out of it, and it certainly was such a mutual emotional experience for both of us. And now here, you know, we're both on this in the same season. That's awfully exciting. Am I a little bit part of the inspiration of that play, a tad or something? Anyway.
Yes, I would say so. Yeah.
It's all about me. It's about me, darling. It's all about me.
Right. Anyway. It absolutely is. Yes. Yeah. I started writing it. It was the first play that I wrote when I graduated from college. And obviously then I worked on it and developed it for several years before it started getting produced. But, you know, it's in a way a, you know, modern take on Lacage and Auntie Mame. And it's also sort of a fantasy of an alternate version of my life. Now multiverse is very popular, so I feel like there's some multiverse somewhere in which you were one of my parents. And so in a way, the show was, things that I was wrestling with in my personal life, and I just sort of reimagined that in a context where I grew up with a gay dad who was a fabulous writer and performer and drag legend and entertainment legend. And so if that sounds like you, it's definitely, when I typed out for the first time, enters in a fiery red wig, I definitely realized, I was like, yes, I can see where this is coming from for me. But I also was trying to write something that was a queer family comedy, and had a lot of elements of camp and of the really raucous and raunchy humor, like in La Cage, but also trying to be very sincere. And that's something that I took from you. And Lily Dare is my favorite play. And let's see, they might have to edit this out, but I've got my poster for Lily Dare hanging right over here in my apartment. But Lily Dare also, I think, to what you were saying, was the culmination of something that I first noticed from you with the Divine Sister, because that was a long run, and I got to see it in its opening, and I got to see it in the closing. And something that I've struggled with. Sorry.
No, I was just saying, we did it for about a year. Ran about a year. Anyway, keep going. Yeah.
And something that I've struggled with is, even in doing my first production off Broadway, Diva Live from Hell, that I did, for 5 or 6 weeks, is that as time wore on, I got sort of bigger and hammier and campier. And something I'll never forget was when I saw you do The Divine Sister after a year of having done it, that it was the most grounded and, emotionally real and vulnerable. And you, tears fell as you talked about, the experience of not knowing that character's mother, her not knowing her mother. And I was so moved and realized that it not only made the play more affecting to me, but it also made the humor funnier, because it was about real emotions and real people with real feelings. And so that's something that I learned from you, that I tried to incorporate into Aunt Jack, that there are people who are feeling real hurt and real things. And, hopefully, while we may get a couple of laughs at their expense, we're also hopefully moved by what they're going through. I remember there was, when I was a senior in college, there was, some article on some website that was, I won't say who, but was sort of going after a really big gay icon for some slip of words, some statement that they thought was internalized homophobia. And I got very frustrated on behalf of an older generation that I felt like was being unfairly harangued in this article. And so my first draft, I think I wrote with a lot of defensiveness. And then as I started to grow up and have my own opinions that are different from, my own role models and people who, raised me, as I started to develop my own perspective, I felt, well, rather than writing it from such a sort of defensive and an angry place, I'd really like to write a play that is about bringing generations together, and that is about, focusing on the elements of identity and experience that unify us. And so that was probably the biggest change, the biggest shift that happened in the play. And over the course of, I mean, I developed it from 2014 until we had our New York premiere. It had its world premiere in 2018, and then our New York premiere in 2019. And I was rewriting it all the way through New York. And, so over 5 years, I changed a lot. And I came out as transgender right after I changed my pronouns to they, them in 2017, but then I really came out as trans, right after the play closed. And I had been married and divorced, and my perspective on the world and on myself really grew as I was writing the play. So I feel like it's reflected in that. It's a coming of age story, and it was written when I was coming of age, I feel like. So that was a big change.
Well, you have such an interesting perspective based on many things. And I for one thing, you're kind of an old soul. That was part of what I, responded to when you were 11. And so I think that kind of has allowed you to see different sides of different generations, as opposed to just being, someone of your own generation who might just have no interest in people who are older. Because it is odd as a person my age, it's all a challenge of things, our old kind of liberal LGBT ideas and aren't necessarily quite good enough today, and our needs need to be just, new things need to be considered, and try not to be closed-minded, and it's a challenge, but I think it's one that's worth pushing yourself, because there often tends to, when you get older, whether you're gay, straight, Democrat, Republican, there's a tendency toward conservatism when one gets older. It's just because things are moving awfully quickly and different from when I was growing up, and it's a challenge that you have to try to just keep an open mind. But I think you come to a play like Aunt Jack with such an interesting, very wide perspective of ages and gender. Yeah.
Thank you. And yes, I felt like exactly what you said about it's worth continuing to look at and evolve ideas, and younger generations will have new ideas. And then also something that I felt like I was interested in was younger generations, my generation, sometimes thinking that we're inventing something that's been around for a long time, and so acting like we've made this huge discovery. And I sometimes feel that right now, where I'm like, we've made this huge discovery, it's called polyamory, and we as millennials are inventing it, and so myopic, and perhaps if we took a moment to talk to people from other generations and not be so self-involved.
My life in the 70s, baby, that was it.
right. Lily Dare is set in the Barbary Coast. And what was the inspiration for that? Is there a reason that you chose or were excited to set it there?
Well, among there's a whole, it was kind of a, how do I explain this? Among the old movies that I've referenced, just for myself, it doesn't matter for the audience to know. In fact, most of the movies that I use as reference in my plays are so obscure that I'd be insane to think that anybody everybody in the audience is going to pick up at a specific reference. I don't go for that at all. In fact, I don't really think that's quite legit in a way or quite right to do a play where you unless you know a specific movie, you're not going to find it amusing. I don't think that's right. So, but anyway, among the movies that I was thinking of was a rather very obscure early 30s movie called Frisco Jenny, and the earthquake had a big part of the plot, and then the movie San Francisco, and so I guess I mean it could have, in a certain sense, it could have taken place on the Bowery in New York, but the whole feeling of San Francisco, and then the fact that the character, she turns into a madam of a string of brothels, the whole romance of the Barbary Coast just seemed like a good way of going, and I love San Francisco. It's although I've never lived full time in San Francisco, it's played a very big part of my life, because the first feeling of career validation that I had was in San Francisco when I was a solo performer and first came there in, I think it was 1981, I think, and then I was so embraced by the gay community and the gay press particularly, that I kept returning each year for like 3-month run at this extraordinary place called the Valencia Rose, which was in the Mission, and I think it's something of a San Francisco legend now, and I mean all sorts of wonderful performers came out of there, and in rather short. It didn't last terribly long, but Leah Delaria and Marga Gomez and Tom Amiano, and then there was a girl who'd recently changed her name to Whoopi Goldberg, who was very talented, and yeah, I mean it was just a fascinating place. And when I played there, it was also it was kind of a cabaret arts center. It was an old Spanish mortuary that had been only semi renovated, but it was also a very hotspot for politics. And it was just not long after Harvey Milk was assassinated, and while I was there, I met all the people in his circle. It was fascinating period. To be there just before AIDS. It's just, and it was so exciting. So I'm very sentimental about San Francisco, and so it's kind of nice having this play that's a bit of a Valentine to that city, and because it goes to the play. It's a time span. It goes from 1905 to the 30s, basically. And that was part of the thing of writing the play. There's a large fantasy element to the plays I write for myself as an actor, and often it really begins with just, gee, who would I like to be? Who would I like to play? And and in this case, I've just always loved movies where the actress ages and gets to go from innocent girlhood to imperious maturity to old crondom, and so I just always wanted to play that part where I aged a lot. So that's kind of started my thinking, and then I just we use as writers, we often just keep going back to the same themes over and over. I remember reading once, I don't know who said it, but that every writer basically has one story to tell, and you just keep retelling it over and over. And I think sometimes the tragedy is when the writer tells it the best too soon, but everything I write seems to have a strong element of a search for a mother, or a mother searching for the child. And I guess one of the key elements in my life was that my mother died when I was 7, and so I'm able to somehow theatrically play that out and play after play after play. And there's a wonderful actress I work with a lot in New York who's created roles in a number of my plays, Jennifer Van Dyke. And so often these different plays, she's either my mother, who I'm or she's my daughter. And it's I sometimes think I should be paying her for psychodrama as night after night she allows me to go through these, relive these traumas and reconciliation, and it makes it easy for me as an actor. For an actor in a play that they haven't written, they have to try to come up with some sort of Stanislavski way of using past experiences to trigger emotions, and I write it into the script, so I can turn on the waterworks in a second, 8 shows a week, just because I'm sort of picking at a scab that never quite heals.
Well, it definitely, as a play, comes across as a love letter to San Francisco, and with all of that heart that you pour into it from your own personal experience. It's why, also because you played this character across her whole life, it felt to me when I saw it the first time, I mean, in a way that it also encapsulates different periods in your career. You're from when you're playing the virginal girl who's going to be sacrificed in Vampire Lesbian to when you're playing the Mother Superior in Divine Sister, and that sort of all of that you get to play in Lily Dare, and I just love the play so much, and I'm so excited that San Francisco audiences are going to get to see both of our plays in one season.
It's very sweet. I don't think that happens too often, where two friends, or certainly in our case, that people who've played such a role in each other's lives are represented in one season. So I was just thrilled when I remember actually Ed Decker, who's the artistic director, emailing me, or maybe it was in person when he came to New York, and if I was familiar with you. I said, familiar? My child. Nora's my child.
Yeah.
So anyway, it's awfully exciting, and anyway, and it's been awfully good. We don't see each other enough. It's so nice. At least I get to see you on the screen.
Yeah. Well, I'm overdue to come and pay you a visit in the West Village.
Yeah, so I really hope so. And anyway, this has certainly been fun, and maybe we'll somehow meet in San Francisco. I don't know. You never know.
That would be wonderful.